I'm Val Johnson. Thank you so much for joining me for Interludes Extra. Check us out and enjoy. I'm fascinated by that because I was thinking the word apologist. I'm like, I don't want to apologize for knowing and loving God. I don't want to. I want to love God and be proud about it. And
Right.
to see an entire women and men collective of apologists, and you guys tag team one another. You're on each other's YouTube. Chris, he'll write about you on the blog, and it kind of goes back and forth. I knew Fredo was searching for kind of that group of folks or that collective to defend the gospel. How did you and BK Apologists come together? I'd love to find that out.
Well, actually, how I got into apologetics, and apologetics, I mean, defined is from the word apologia. And it's found within 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 16, which essentially it says, always be prepared to make a defense for the faith and the hope that is within you. So, and we take that very seriously because, we want to have this defense for the faith. And so how I came to this whole thing was a good friend of mine came to Christ, and he was searching very hard, and God was working on him. He was into the word, he was reading the word. And then we're about 3 months into this thing, and then all of a sudden he would start telling me about this guy who was preaching on YouTube. Okay. And I was like, I'm not familiar with this type of theology. Let me check it out. So I start looking into it, and the guy was a Hebrew Israelite. And so I start, for those who might not be familiar with who Hebrew Israelites are, they're another cultural identity group. They hold to an identity doctrine that basically black, brown, and dark people who are in the Western Hemisphere, and this is a very 30,000 foot overview of who they are, but they essentially claim that they are, so the African Americans, Native Americans, Hispanics, Jamaicans, those types of anyone who's brown and on the western side of the planet are the actual Jews. Wow. And so there's a lot of theology. A lot of it is identity doctrine. Right. And so, so my friend was really getting into this. And so I start researching what it was. I was starting from scratch. I knew nothing. And I stumbled upon Vocab Malone's channel.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was watching Vocab and sort of just trying to hone into this whole idea of Hebrew Israelism. Formerly, the Black Hebrew Israelites is another name. They don't really care for that name anymore. So out of that respect of not, poking the hornet's nest, if you will, so Hebrew Israelites. And so looking into that, and then, Vocab is another guy who likes to showcase other apologists and stuff. And so BK, I think it was BK and Adam Coleman were on his channel together. And so I was really impressed with BK and Adam. And so I start looking into both of their content. And it was literally right around the time Alfredo started the Bodega Bible Talk. And so I tuned in, and I was a loyal fan for a few months. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get on this platform. Like that was my goal. But totally by God's grace, actually him and my break-in point, I think was BK and Adam Coleman were doing this critique of Candace Owens. And she had made a comment, this broad comment about Native American people being cannibals or something like that, or and I was like, wait, that's not historically accurate, Exactly. And I said it had to be some kind of weird anomaly, maybe they were in some kind of hardship situation. And it turned out that that's exactly what it was. And so Adam's like, hey, this guy in the chat kind of knows what he's talking about. So that was like my first, like, them realizing I might be some kind of asset. And then I really don't know how I got onto the Bodega Bible Talk, but Alfredo let me on one time, and I hung around long enough in the chat to sort of be known a little bit, and I was a moderator for a while, and so I just sort of hung around, and then God did His work, and then now I'm part of the UA community, one of the content creators and those types of things. So yeah, it's just totally one of those things where God was working and allowed, little old me to share my gifts and share my unique perspective.
I know, and sharing the gospel with people, and you probably have answered this a little bit. What drops of hope are you aspiring to give the masses through YouTube and beyond?
Yeah, that's well, Drops of Hope Ministries actually came from this idea of um, reservation life. Typically is very, it's very oppressive
Yeah.
for some folks.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reservations, actually, when I was in high school, because I came to Christ when I was a freshman in high school, didn't really live the life until way after that. But I was always a Christian, and maybe my sanctification wasn't where it needed to be. But I always remembered the fact that when I was in high school, there was a epidemic, a suicide epidemic on one of the reservations, and they were losing like one. I think the statistic was for a span of like a year and a half, they were losing like one kid a week to suicide. And because of this hopelessness, um, I wanted to bring back hope to my people. That was my goal. It was always my goal. And Drops of Hope literally started as a blog, and I intentionally started it as very very short blogs because Native people historically aren't readers. So
Okay.
it's tough to get someone to read even a 2-minute read, because a 2-minute read is like this long,
500
and
words or more. Yeah.
yeah. So getting somebody to read, this little paragraph basically, and that was more manageable. And so I thought of it as drops of hope and little bite-sized nuggets of hope that people can hold on to. And so that was the basically the genesis of the ministry. And then now it's taken off into this, this platform of YouTube, and now we have, we're pushing over 3,500 subscribers. And literally our goal is my goal is not to just be able to minister to Native people, but to minister to anybody, but using the uniqueness of my position as being a Native person, and some of the things that and the values that we have as Native people, and share those with the masses, because there's a lot of things, unfortunately, that were looked over by the first settlers. There was a lot of things, particularly in Christianity, because they didn't really know how to handle us, because they didn't want to take the time, unfortunately, to really get to understand our culture and our faith. They just sort of wrote it off as demonic or as a heathen, but there's a lot of beauty within Native American culture, a lot of things that can be redeemed, but unfortunately it was just written off. And so that's sort of my angle, is to show people the compassion and where that stems from, and sort of not just for the sake of neutrality, but for the passion and the compassion and the community, because that's one of the biggest things about Native people is that we are still very communal within our culture structure. And so we still hold that to high value, just like the early church, right?
Exactly.
So that structure is still in place, and there's a lot of ancient leftover stuff, because we're not too far from being an ancient religion. The ancient faith of the Native people is very, very similar to a lot of the value systems and philosophical systems and community systems that were used in the early church and in the time of Jesus and the time of the Jews and all those things. So there's still that remnant.
Thank you for watching the Interludes Extra. Please like and subscribe to Interludes, our YouTube channel. I'm Val Johnson. Take care.